I'm Driti Ari, you're watching TimesXP and welcome to Top US News Today. Today we have a massive update shaking up the entire world. And yes, India is right in the spotlight. Well, the tension between India and Pakistan has flared up again. Just recently, Pakistan launched missiles and drone attacks targeting India, but India's military stood really strong and shot them down. Pakistan's attack failed once again, showing that their weakness is right on the global stage. Earlier, India had launched powerful missile strikes inside Pakistan, killing 31 people. But those were not civilians. India was crystal clear. These were strikes against terrorist base and not the people of Pakistan. And let's not forget, Pakistan has long been a breeding ground for terrorists like Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed, and many others too that have carried brutal attacks on Indian soil. But as usual, Pakistan is acting innocent right now, pretending that they don't know anything about terrorism inside their own borders. And here is where the United States comes in. US Vice President J.D. Vance went on to one of the biggest media houses in the US and gave a blunt message. The US will not intervene in the India-Pakistan conflict. J.D. Vance said, "It's none of our business." That's right. America is stepping back. Vance added that the US will try to encourage both the sides to calm down, but America will not send troops. It will not interfere and cannot force India or Pakistan to stop fighting. He said that we can't make them lay down their arms, and the US will instead focus on diplomatic talks. You know what? This is a huge movement because it marks another chapter in US President Donald Trump's America First foreign policy. The Indian government has issued executive orders to X, asking it to block more than 8,000 accounts across the country. These accounts reportedly included international news organizations, very well-known public figures on X, and many smaller accounts. The government claims that these accounts have violated India's law, but in many cases, it has not specified exactly which post or any action caused the alleged violation. In fact, X says that for a significant number of these accounts, it received no clear evidence or explanation from the government. Despite disagreeing with the government's demand, X has decided to comply with the orders, but only partially. It has begun blocking the listed accounts inside India only, meaning that the accounts remain accessible in other countries. Well, the situation highlights a deeper issue that matters to millions of Indians: the balance between national regulation and personal freedom online. As social media platforms become essential for news, communication, and expression, any government effort to limit access or speech on these particular platforms raises questions about censorship, rights, and the health of democracy. In the end, the X is following the Indian government's order to block over 8,000 accounts, but it has made it very clear that it disagrees with this type of approach. On May 7, India's armed forces launched Operation Sindoor to destroy 9 terrorist sites inside Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. Let me tell you, these places were not random. These were hubs where terrorist attacks against India were planned and controlled. India's actions were kind of smart and responsible. It only hit terrorist targets, avoiding Pakistani military facilities, showing the world that India can strike back really hard, but with precision. On the other hand, Pakistan was left humiliated, and then they attacked India in retaliation. Because of the strikes, Indian airspace were restricted for safety, and that led to major disruption at Delhi airport. The airport quickly posted an advisory on social media saying that while all the terminals and runways were working normally, some flights were affected due to the airspace changes. In fact, after the attack, a total of 27 airports across India were closed for commercial flights. This included airports in places like Gwalior, Dharamshala, Shimla, Amritsar, and several other parts in northern India. These security measures are expected to stay in place until Saturday morning to ensure national safety and preparedness. Well, India showed the world that it has the strength and wisdom to act at the right time in the right way. The message to Pakistan was loud and clear: stop supporting terrorism or pay the price. In recent tension, Pakistan made a big claim saying that it shot down 5 Indian jets. Wait, let's break it down. While Pakistan celebrated this particular victory, it's a clear message that India's response and power are far superior. In fact, India's military might be so strong that any talk of Pakistan's victory feels like a fantasy rather than a reality. South Asia analyst Michael Kugelman was right when he said that India's strike on Pakistan is far more impactful than the one back in 2019. And now, with Pakistan claiming to have downed Indian jet, it's pretty clear that Pakistan has found itself stepping up a ladder that it can't be possible. Let me tell you, India's Air Force is no joke. With over 680 combat aircraft, India has the firepower to overwhelm any adversary. Now, if we compare it, then Pakistan only has about 410 aircraft, and of those, a significant portion are old, outdated F-16s jet that Pakistan bought from the United States, but with a catch. These F-16s were meant for counter-terrorism in Afghanistan, not for fighting a nuclear-armed nation like India. So, if Pakistan dares to use these jets against India, it will be risking a major international backlash, including sanctions, and losing the support of the US. But then again, when has Pakistan ever cared about the consequences of their action? Maybe they think the world will just turn a blind eye. You know what the reality is? Pakistan has already violated these agreements before. In 2019, it allegedly used these F-16s in airstrikes on India, which was a clear violation of the end-user agreements with the US. The US let it slide at that point of time, but who's to say that they'll keep turning a blind eye? Pakistan's desperate attempt to make up for their weak air force are just pitiful. They only have around 75 F-16s, which are rapidly aging, and the world knows about it. So, what's Pakistan's solution? Well, they turn their shiny new fleet of Chinese-made jets that they are hoping will be counter to India's Rafale. But here's the thing. Pakistan only has 25 to 30 of these jets. In the meantime, India's Rafale are outclassing everything that Pakistan can throw at them. Recently, US Vice President J.D. Vance made it very clear that the US will not intervene directly in an India-Pakistan conflict. In an interview with one of the biggest media houses, Vance said that it's none of our business and emphasized that while America will encourage both sides to de-escalate, it cannot force India or Pakistan to lay down their arms. Instead, the US plans to rely on diplomatic channels, urging calm behind the scenes but avoiding direct military involvement. Now, this approach fits perfectly well with Donald Trump's America First foreign policy, which has shifted the US away from acting as a global policeman. We have already seen the Trump administration hint at pulling back from mediating the Russia-Ukraine war, and now it's doing the same with South Asia. But does the US really have the power to stop a nuclear war between the two nations? So the honest answer is it's complicated. On one hand, the US has enormous influence. It is the world's largest economy with defense budget of over $880 billion. It provides military aid to Pakistan and has deepening security ties with India as well. Let me give you an example here. After the Kargil conflict in 1999, it was the US President Bill Clinton who intervened and pressurized Pakistan's then Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif to withdraw Pakistani forces. Now that crisis was diffused largely thanks to Washington's behind-the-scene effort. But on the other hand, both India and Pakistan have independent nuclear command systems. They are sovereign states with their own military, political, and national interest. India specifically is unlikely to let any foreign power dictate its defense policies, and Pakistan's military establishment often acts without even consulting civilian leaders. In short, the US can actually push, but it cannot control. It's ultimately up to the leaders in Delhi and Islamabad to decide whether to escalate or pull back. Recently, India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar spoke with US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, explaining that India's actions were measured and focused on protecting its own interests. Jaishankar also said a very clear message: India will firmly deal with any attempt from Pakistan to escalate tension. By keeping the US informed, India achieves the SMART goal. A keeps global friend on its side, so Pakistan can't falsely claim that India is acting recklessly. Secondly, block Pakistan's sympathy tricks, because when the world knows the real picture, Pakistan's complaint lose the weight. Third, secure international backing, which strengthen India's diplomatic and economic standing. Let's talk about the hidden weaknesses now. Here's an important detail that many people forget. Pakistan's own air force is partly due to United States. In the past, the US sold Pakistan F-16 fighter jets, which are among Pakistan's most advanced aircrafts. But these jets come with strict policies. Under the deal, Pakistan is not free to use these jets however it likes. The US placed strict conditions, including that the jets should be used mainly for counter-terrorism operation, not for the conflict with other countries like India. On the top of that, Pakistan often needs US permission or technical support for upgrades, maintenance, and spare parts. In other words, Pakistan's most powerful planes are partly controlled by the US, a country now urging de-escalation and calm. So, while Pakistan talks are really tough, in reality, its military operations are limited and it knows that overstepping could lead to serious consequences, including the losing of access to these critical jets. In the meantime, the US Vice President J.D. Vance has made it very clear that the US won't directly intervene in India-Pakistan conflict. While the US will encourage both countries to stay calm and avoid war, it won't force anybody to back down. Well, this is part of America's America First approach, avoiding entanglement in global fights until and unless it's absolutely necessary. India today is a global heavyweight with a booming economy, a world-class tech sector, a strong space program, and key international alliances. When Indian leaders speak, the world listens. In short, India is acting like a responsible, confident global power, and Pakistan is looking increasingly boxed in, both diplomatically and militarily. Thanks for watching. Follow for more.